Imagine this, you wake up one morning inside your own home, only to suddenly realize that every door in the house is sealed shut. None of the windows will break, the internet is down, your mobile signal has completely disappeared, and the rain falling outside almost seems like it's watching you. At first you think, help will come, but days turn into months, months turn into years, and before you know it, 5 years have passed. You try to break down the doors, you punch holes through the walls, you search for any possible way out, but every time you damage something, the mysterious water reaches that exact spot and seals it again. Just to stay alive, the family builds a garden inside the house, collects water, produces food, and slowly transforms their own home into a survival bunker. But after 5 years, they begin to realize something terrifying. Maybe the house was never keeping them trapped inside. Maybe it was keeping something horrifying outside from getting in. And the day that thing finally enters the house, that is when the real nightmare begins. The story begins near Seattle, where Jason, an unemployed engineer, is getting ready to head home after spending the morning fishing. The weather was supposed to be normal, but unusually dark clouds suddenly begin moving in rapidly from the ocean. Jason packs up his things and starts driving home. What he doesn't realize is that this ordinary drive may be the last time he'll be able to move freely outside for many years. Jason's life is already full of problems. He's unemployed, money is tight, they're struggling to make their mortgage payments, and the house they live in is slowly sinking into the ground. Large cracks have started appearing in the chimney, and the foundation has become dangerously weak. Inside the house are Jason's wife, Anne, their son Graham, their young daughter Ruth, and their elderly dog, Cassidy. For a little while, everything still seems completely normal. Then, without warning, the internet goes out. Within seconds, their mobile signal disappears too. Jason assumes it's probably just a temporary problem caused by the storm. But when the kids try to leave the house, the front door won't move at all. Jason checks the back door, the garage door, and the windows. Nothing opens. Jason grabs a heavy metal tool and strikes one of the windows. The glass cracks, but it doesn't break. Even more terrifying, the rainwater begins spreading across the cracks and sealing them again, almost as if the water itself were alive. Now, the fear truly begins. Jason looks outside and realizes they're not the only ones trapped. Their neighbors are also locked inside their own homes. People across the street are pounding on their doors and windows, desperately trying to escape. Their neighbor Susan had been outside jogging when the rain began. She returns to her house, but she can't get back inside either. Everyone begins communicating by writing messages on paper and using hand signals through the windows. Some people think it may be a government experiment. Others believe aliens may have attacked, but nobody knows whether this is happening to just one street, the entire city, or possibly the whole world. Jason isn't the kind of person who can simply sit still and wait. He grabs a drill and tries to make a hole through the door. He attacks the walls and searches the entire house for weak points, but every attempt fails. Wherever he causes damage, the mysterious water reaches that area and reinforces it again. As an engineer, Jason understands wood, metal, pressure, and structural design, but what he's facing now is nothing like any normal material he has ever seen. The next morning, Jason counts the remaining food in the house. They have enough supplies to survive for a while, but no one knows how long a while will need to be, so Jason starts strictly controlling their food, water, and electricity, and tries to keep the children calm. Slowly, their home begins to feel less like a home and more like a survival machine. But Ruth notices something that everyone else misses. When rainwater collects on the window, one small drop doesn't move normally. Ruth brings a pencil close to it, and strangely, the drop seems to follow the movement of the pencil. A little later, she sees a dark figure standing somewhere beyond the rain. It isn't human. The shadow appears for only a few seconds before disappearing. Ruth tells the adults what she saw, but they dismiss it as fear, or simply a child's imagination. Days turn into weeks. Their food portions become smaller and smaller. Christmas arrives, but now celebrating means creating something out of almost nothing. Anne manages to grow a small tomato inside the house. At this point, that tiny tomato feels more valuable to them than any expensive gift ever could. Across the street, their neighbors are becoming weaker. The family is forced to watch other people suffer right in front of them, knowing there's absolutely nothing they can do to help. Then one night, Ruth pulls back the curtain and sees Susan standing outside. Susan is alive, but she looks absolutely terrified. She screams that everyone is dead and that no help is coming. She begs them to let her inside. Jason and Anne rush toward the window, but there's nothing they can do. Long, tentacle-like arms suddenly grab her, and in one violent movement, she is dragged away into the darkness. From that moment on, all the rules change. Until now, the house had been their prison, but now they realize that maybe this prison is also the only thing keeping them alive. From that day forward, whenever the rain begins, Jason closes the curtains, covers the lights, and makes sure there is no movement near the windows. If those creatures outside realize that someone is still alive inside the house, there's no guarantee the house will continue protecting them forever. Meanwhile, Cassidy's heart medication runs out. The old dog's condition gets worse and worse. Eventually, Jason is forced to make the painful decision to end Cassidy's suffering. But afterward, an even harsher reality sets in. Their food supply is disappearing. Jason decides to keep some of Cassidy's meat as emergency food, and can't accept the decision and leaves the responsibility entirely to Jason. From this point forward, Jason is no longer just a worried father. He's becoming a man willing to make almost any brutal decision if it means keeping his family alive. Sometime later, the damaged chimney becomes their first possible connection to the outside world. They try lifting Ruth through it, hoping she might be able to escape, but the opening is too small. Jason then realizes that even if a person can't get through, the chimney can still become part of their survival system. Using ropes, tools, and old materials from around the house, he builds traps that can be lowered outside to catch small animals, and begins turning parts of the house into an indoor garden. They start collecting and reusing water. Furniture is broken apart and transformed into new tools. Everything inside the house begins serving a completely different purpose. The living room becomes farmland. The chimney becomes a hunting point. The pipes become lifelines. Their home is no longer just the place where they live. It has become the machine keeping them alive. Then one day the electricity shuts off completely. Weeks turn into months. Months turn into years. 5 years later, the family is still alive, but they are no longer the same people they once were. Graham and Ruth are older now. Anne's garden has spread throughout the house. Jason has built complicated systems for collecting water, catching food, and reusing whatever materials they have left. Outside, nature has completely taken over the neighborhood. Wild animals now walk through streets that were once filled with people. Many of the neighboring houses are completely silent. One day, Jason proudly shows the family that he has finally managed to repair their old broken car. To Jason, it represents hope. To Graham, it represents a pointless obsession. Yes, the car runs, but it still can't leave the house. Jason says his only responsibility is to keep his family alive, but Anne reminds him that this is exactly the problem. The family doesn't only need a protector anymore. The children need their father too, and Anne needs her husband. Then the rain begins again, but this time, something is different. Water starts leaking around the sealed entrance. The barrier appears to weaken, and then, suddenly, a creature enters the house. For 5 years, they had only seen these things through rain and glass. Now one of them is standing directly in front of them. It looks somewhat humanoid, but it is clearly connected to the ocean. Its body has tentacle-like features, and salty seawater drips from it. Jason immediately orders everyone to hide. The creature begins moving through the house, and the survival system the family spent 5 years building starts falling apart within minutes. Plants are destroyed, water supplies become contaminated, years of work are suddenly put at risk. For a few moments, the door leading outside is open. Graham sees his chance and tries to run, but Jason notices other creatures outside and stops him. The door seals shut again. Graham becomes even angrier with his father, but at that same moment, Ruth notices something extremely important. The water dripping from the creature's body is salt water. Now everything begins to make sense in a completely different way. Maybe these things aren't aliens. Maybe they're creatures from the deepest parts of the ocean, from a world humanity has still never fully explored. Maybe the rain isn't simply weather. Maybe the water is what allows these creatures to travel from the ocean onto land. So the family prepares one final plan. This may be their last chance. After 5 years of non-stop rain and a collapsing foundation, the house is sinking even deeper into the ground. Their shelter could become their grave at any moment. Then the next storm begins, but almost immediately, the plan starts going wrong. Water begins flooding the lower level of the house at terrifying speed. Within minutes, the house feels like a sinking ship. The creature enters again through the water. Now the family is fighting inside their own home, but in an environment where the creature has every possible advantage. Graham dives underwater to recover the lost harpoon. Everyone else struggles to reach the attic. At the last possible moment, The trap is activated. The harpoon hits the creature. The rope tightens. The old car Jason repaired begins pulling against it. The weakened house starts shaking. The floor cracks. Water rushes everywhere. But finally, the creature becomes trapped. Jason approaches it with a knife and demands that it open the door. For 5 years, Jason has lived by one rule: control the problem, destroy the threat, protect the family. But this time, the creature doesn't attack him. Instead, it looks afraid. Ruth stops her father. If Jason kills it, they may remain trapped forever. But Ruth is trying to make Jason understand something much deeper than simply finding a way to escape. She forces him to see something he has refused to consider for 5 years. Maybe this creature feels fear too. Jason looks at the creature, then he slowly lowers the knife. He cuts the ropes, and he sets it free. For several seconds, nobody moves. Then the creature slowly walks toward the front door and opens it. For the first time in 5 years, the entire family steps outside. But their freedom lasts only a moment. Several other creatures are waiting for them. Jason, Anne, Graham, and Ruth freeze. They believe they have escaped 5 years of imprisonment, only to walk directly into death. Then the creature Jason spared steps in front of the family. It communicates with the other creatures somehow, and slowly, they all back away. Where force had failed, mercy succeeds. At that exact moment, the house behind them finally collapses completely into the ground. The rain that seemed endless for 5 years slowly begins to stop.